In the heart of the bustling town of Oyo, there lived a young woman named Moji. She was a food seller who spent her days cooking delicious meals and selling them in the crowded market. Every morning, before the sun rose, Moji would wake up and light her small cooking fire. She would prepare steaming pots of jollof rice, sweet fried plantains, and smooth pounded yam. She worked with love, hoping her food would bring happiness to others. But the market was a busy place, filled with many other food sellers. Some of them had large stalls, colorful signs, and loud voices calling customers to come and eat. Others had food that smelled so good it could make your stomach rumble from far away. Moji's little stall, on the other hand, was small and simple. She had no bright signs, no loud voice, and no secret recipes. She only had her hands, her pots, and her hope. Every day, Moji sat at her stall and watched the other sellers. Customers lined up at their tables, laughing and eating big plates of food. Moji would smile politely at passersby, but they rarely stopped. Sometimes, a kind stranger would buy a plate of food from her, but it was never enough. By the time the sun set, Moji would pack up her unsold food and walk home slowly, her basket still heavy. "Why don't people like my food?" Moji would whisper to herself as she sat alone under a big mango tree near her house. "I work so hard. I cook with care. What am I doing wrong?" But the mango tree could not answer, and Moji's heart grew heavier each day. The food market in Oyo was famous. People traveled from nearby villages to taste the meals sold there. Sellers like Mama Tolu, the jollof rice queen, had customers waiting before she even opened her pot. Her rice was red, spicy, and smelled like heaven. "Come and eat the best rice in Oyo." Mama Tolu would shout, her voice booming through the market. People would rush to her stall, coins clinking in their pockets. Then there was Baba Say, the plantain king. His fried plantains were golden, soft, and sweet. When he cooked, the air around him smelled like sugar and sunshine. Children would pull their mother's hands and say, "Mama, I want Baba Say's plantains." Baba Say would smile, his big, round face glowing with pride. Moji watched them every day. She tried to smile and cheer herself up, but it was hard. Her food was good, at least she thought so. It was warm, filling, and made with love. But for some reason, it never tasted as special as Mama Tolu's rice or Baba Say's plantains. Moji would often wonder if there was a secret she didn't know, something that made their food taste so magical. One afternoon, after another long day with no customers, Moji sat on the ground behind her stall. Her basket was still full, and her coins were still few. She could hear the other sellers laughing as they counted their money. "Another good day," Mama Tolu said happily. Moji's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. "I just need to work harder," she told herself. But deep in her heart, she began to wonder if hard work alone would ever be enough. That night, Moji could not sleep. She tossed and turned on her small mat, her mind filled with thoughts. She thought about Mama Tolu, Baba Say, and all the other sellers in the market. What was their secret? How did they make their food so special? Moji sighed deeply and sat up. "There must be something I can do," she whispered to the darkness. "Anything." The next morning, Moji woke up feeling more determined than ever. She cooked her food carefully, making sure her jollof rice was red and tasty, her plantains were golden, and her yam was soft and smooth. She carried her basket to the market, hoping that today would be different. But the market was the same as always. Mama Tolu's voice filled the air, and Baba Say's sweet plantains drew long lines of customers. Moji's little stall sat quietly at the corner, unnoticed. By the end of the day, Moji had only sold 2 plates of food. She carried her heavy basket home, her heart even heavier. As Moji walked past the big mango tree near her house, she sat down and began to cry softly. "What am I doing wrong?" she asked. "How can I make my food taste special?" The wind blew gently through the leaves, and for a moment, it seemed to whisper something. Moji looked up. The forest behind the trees stretched out like a shadowy blanket. People often said strange things lived their spirits, magic, and even an old witch doctor who could help with problems. The witch doctor, Moji whispered. She had heard about him from the other sellers. Some said he could grant wishes. Others said his magic was dangerous. Moji sat under the mango tree for a long time, thinking. She knew it was foolish to believe in such things, but what choice did she have? Her food was not selling. Her heart was full of sadness. Maybe the witch doctor can help me, Moji said quietly to herself. As the sun set behind the hills of Oyo, Moji made a decision. She would go into the forest and find the witch doctor. She would ask for his help, no matter what it cost. The next morning, Moji prepared herself for the journey. The forest was a place many people avoided. They said it was full of strange noises and shadows that seemed to move on their own. Some said they had seen glowing eyes in the darkness, and others claimed they had heard voices calling their names. Moji was afraid, but her desire to succeed was stronger than her fear. She packed a small basket with food and water and set off as the sun rose. The path into the forest was narrow, with tall trees on either side. Their branches formed a roof that blocked out the sunlight, leaving the ground cool and dark. As Moji walked deeper into the forest, the sounds of the market faded away. All she could hear now were the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves. She held her basket tightly and kept walking. The trees grew thicker, and the path became harder to see. Moji stopped for a moment to catch her breath. Am I going the right way? She wondered aloud. Just then, she heard a sound. It was a soft humming, like someone singing far away. Moji's heart jumped. She followed the sound, her feet moving quickly. The humming grew louder until she saw a small hut hidden between the trees. The hut was made of mud and straw, with strange symbols painted on the walls. Smoke rose from a hole in the roof, and the air smelled of herbs and something sharp. Moji hesitated for a moment. Her hands trembled, but she knocked on the door lightly and "Come in," said a deep, creaky voice from inside. Moji pushed the door open and stepped in. The hut was dimly lit by a small fire. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars of powders, roots, and dried leaves. In the center of the room sat an old man with a long white beard. His eyes were sharp and bright like stars. I know why you are here, the old man said before Moji could speak. His voice was calm but powerful, like a river flowing steadily. Moji's mouth opened in surprise. You do? She asked. The old man nodded. You wanted food to be the best in the market. You want people to love it and line up at your stall. Isn't that true? Moji nodded quickly. Yes, Baba. I need help. Please. The old man stroked his beard thoughtfully. I can help you, he said, but magic is not free. There is always a price. Moji's heart beat faster. I'll do anything, she said. Anything to make my food special. The old man smiled, but his eyes remained serious. He reached into a wooden box and pulled out a tiny charm. It was small, round, and shiny, no bigger than a coin. This charm has great power, he said. Place it near your cooking pot. Spark of hope in her heart. With the charm in her basket, Moji hurried back home. She couldn't wait to see if it would really work. That evening, she placed the charm next to her big cooking pot and began to prepare her food. As she stirred the jollof rice, the air in her kitchen changed. The food began to smell sweeter, richer, and more inviting than ever before. When Moji tasted the rice, her eyes widened. This is amazing, she exclaimed. The flavor was perfect, better than anything she had ever cooked before. She fried her plantains and pounded her yam, and each dish was just as delicious. The charm's magic was real. The next morning, Moji carried her food to the market with excitement. As soon as she set up her stall, the sweet smell of her food filled the air. People turned their heads, sniffing and looking curious. What is that? Someone asked. It smells wonderful. For the first time, customers lined up at Moji's stall. They tasted her food and couldn't stop praising it. This is the best food I have ever eaten. A man said, give me more. A woman cried. Moji's heart swelled with pride as she served plate after plate. By the end of the day, her basket was empty, and her pockets were full of coins. As Moji walked home that evening, she smiled for the first time in a long while. The charm is working, she said to herself. My life is about to change. The days that followed were like a dream for Moji. Every morning, she cooked her food with the charm close to her pots, and every day, customers flocked to her stall. The once quiet corner of the market became the busiest spot. People came from near and far, bringing their friends and families to taste Moji's magical meals. Her fame spread beyond Oyo. Travelers spoke of the young woman whose food was so delicious it could make anyone smile. You haven't lived until you've tasted Moji's cooking, they would say. Moji's coins piled up, and soon she was able to buy a bigger stall, new cooking pots, and bright signs with her name on them. But as her success grew, so did her pride. Moji began to look at the other sellers with pity. They're trying so hard, but they can never be like me, she thought. She no longer greeted Mama Tolu or Baba Say in the mornings. Instead, she sat at her grand stall, watching the long line of customers with a satisfied smile. One evening, as Moji counted her earnings under the light of a lantern, she noticed the charm glinting in the corner of her kitchen. She picked it up and held it close, remembering the witch doctor's words. Use it wisely, and it will help you. But if you let greed take over, the magic will turn against you. Moji frowned. What does he know? She muttered. This charm has brought me nothing but success. What harm can come from using it a little more? The next morning, Moji decided to prepare extra food. If a little magic is good, then more magic will be even better, she reasoned. She placed the charm closer to her pots and whispered to it, make my food even sweeter, even more delicious, /U2O1D and the food smelled richer than ever before, and customers were even more eager to buy it. But as they ate, some of them frowned slightly. It's so sweet, one man said, though he still finished his plate. Almost too sweet, Moji ignored the comment, confident that her food was perfect. As the days went by, more customers began to complain. Your food tastes different, a woman said, pushing her plate away. It's too sweet. It doesn't taste natural. Moji's smile faltered, but she waved the woman off. What does she know about good food? Moji muttered. She continued to use the charm, adding more magic to her cooking. One day, a young boy named Ade came to her stall with his mother. He took one bite of the food and wrinkled his nose. Mama, I don't like it, he said. It tastes funny. Moji overheard the boy and felt her anger rise. How dare you insult my food? She snapped. The boy's mother apologized and quickly led him away, but whispers began to spread through the market. People started to talk. Have you noticed something strange about Moji's food? It's not as good as it used to be. Maybe the magic is wearing off. Moji tried to ignore the gossip, but the lines at her stall grew shorter each day. Her rivals, Mama Tolu and Baba Say, began to regain their customers. Moji's heart filled with panic. Why is this happening? She cried one night, staring at the charm on her table. You were supposed to help me. The charm lay silent. It shined duller than before. Moji's mind raced. Maybe I'm not using it enough, she thought. Desperate, she placed the charm directly into her pot the next morning, hoping it would make her food as irresistible as it once was. But the food that came out was worse than before. It was cloyingly sweet, with a strange metallic taste. Customers spat it out and demanded their money back. Some even accused Moji of poisoning them. I don't know what's happening, Moji pleaded, but the people didn't believe her. They began to avoid her stall entirely, and her once busy corner of the market became quiet again. Moji's coins dwindled, and her heart grew heavy with regret. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Moji sat alone in her empty stall. The charm lay in her hand, cold and lifeless. Tears streamed down her face as she thought about the witch doctor's warning. I was greedy, she whispered. I didn't listen. Moji decided she had to return to the forest and find the witch doctor. She needed to understand what had gone wrong and ask if there was a way to fix it. With the charm in her pocket, she set off down the dark, winding path, her heart heavy, but filled with a tiny spark of hope. The forest felt darker than Moji remembered. The tall trees whispered in the wind, their branches twisting like skeletal hands. Moji clutched the charm tightly as she walked, each step echoing her regret. Suddenly, she heard a soft rustle in the bushes. Her heart pounded. "Who's there?" She called out. A small figure emerged. It was a child, no older than Ade, with wide, curious eyes and bare feet. The child held a wooden staff far too big for their small frame. "Why are you crying?" the child asked, tilting their head. Moji hesitated. "I made a mistake," she said softly. "I used magic to make my food special, but now it's ruined everything." The child's gaze sharpened. "Magic always comes with a price," they said, echoing the witch doctor's words. "But sometimes the price isn't what you think it is." Before Moji could ask what they meant, the child pointed the staff at her. The air shimmered, and Moji felt a strange tug, as if something deep within her was being pulled away. When Moji opened her eyes, she was no longer in the forest. She stood in a dimly lit hut, and before her sat the witch doctor. His piercing eyes studied her, but there was a hint of sorrow in them now. "You have returned," he said, "but not alone." He gestured behind her. Moji turned and gasped. Standing in the corner was a shadowy figure, tall and thin, with hollow eyes that glowed faintly. It looked like it was made of smoke and darkness. "What is that?" Moji whispered, fear gripping her. "That," the witch doctor said gravely, "is the price you did not see. Every time you used the charm, it drew from your essence. This shadow is what remains of your greed and pride. It will follow you until you make amends." Moji's knees buckled. "How can I fix this?" she begged. "Please, I'll do anything." The witch doctor's expression softened. "To break the curse, you must give back what you took. Your success came at the cost of others. You must find a way to help those you have wronged." Moji returned to the market the next day, her heart heavy but determined. The shadow followed her, unseen by others, but always lurking in the corner of her vision. She set up her stall again, but this time, she prepared her food without the charm. The first customer to approach her was Mama Tolu. "Moji," she said cautiously, "you're back. Are you here to sell more of that strange food?" Moji shook her head. "No, Mama Tolu. I've come to make things right. I'll sell my food the way I used to, with no magic, and I'll help you if I can." Mama Tolu's eyes softened. "We'll see," she said, walking away. As the day went on, Moji offered free meals to her neighbors and helped the other sellers with their stalls. She told them the truth about the charm and her mistakes. Some forgave her, while others remained wary. But Moji's determination never wavered. One evening, as Moji cleaned her stall, the shadow appeared before her, more solid than before. It pointed to a wealthy merchant who was packing up his stall. Moji recognized him as a man who had often mocked her for her struggles in the past. The shadow whispered, "He has more than he needs. If you take just one of his gold coins, no one will know. You could rebuild your stall, make your life easier." Moji's heart raced. The temptation was strong, but she clenched her fists. "No," she said firmly, "I will not take what isn't mine. I will earn my success honestly." The shadow let out a low hiss and faded slightly. Moji realized that resisting her old ways weakened the shadow. She felt a spark of hope. "I can beat this," she thought, her resolve strengthening. Moji continued to work tirelessly in the market, offering help where she could and serving food without the magic of the charm. Although some customers returned, others still avoided her stall. The shadow followed her every step, sometimes whispering temptations in her ear, promising easy paths and quick rewards. But Moji remained determined. One afternoon, as Moji was washing her pots, Mama Tolu approached her stall. "Moji," she said quietly, "I've been watching you. You seem different these days. What's going on?" Moji hesitated, then sat down beside Mama Tolu. "I made a terrible mistake," she confessed. "I used a magic charm to make my food irresistible, and in doing so, I hurt others. I let greed take over, and now there's a shadow following me. It's the price I have to pay for my actions." Mama Tolu listened carefully. I had heard stories about that charm, but what you're doing now is the right thing. It's hard to make things right, but you're trying. That's what matters. Moji smiled faintly, her heart warmed by Mama Tolu's words. Thank you, she said softly. But it doesn't feel like enough. The shadow is still here, and I don't know how to make it go away. Mama Tolu placed a hand on Moji's shoulder. You have to forgive yourself first. The shadow will always be there as long as you let your guilt eat at you. Once you can make peace with what happened, the shadow will lose its power. Moji thought about her words as the sun set behind the hills. She had been so focused on making her food the best that she had forgotten what truly mattered, the people around her. Days passed, and Moji continued her work, helping others and cooking meals with love. The shadow had not disappeared, but its form grew weaker with every act of kindness and honesty. One evening, after Moji had finished serving a plate of jollof rice to a family who had no money to pay, she felt a strange sensation in her pocket. The charm had begun to glow again. Moji pulled it out, surprised to see it gleaming brightly, as if alive. She held it in her palm, and for a moment, the shadow seemed to recoil, as if afraid of the light. What is this? Moji whispered. Has it changed? The shadow began to fade, its edges dissolving like mist in the morning sun. Moji's heart leaped in her chest. She had finally done it. Through her acts of kindness, the shadow was losing its power. She had not only helped others, but she had also helped herself. With the shadow gone, Moji stood taller than she had in a long time. Her stall was still smaller than it had been before, but it felt more honest now. People began to return, not because of magic, but because of the warmth in her food and the kindness she showed. Her food may not have been as perfect as it once was, but it was real, and that was enough. One day, as she was serving a family with a young girl who had big, bright eyes, the child looked up at her and said, "Your food is the best. I've never tasted anything like it." Moji smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "Thank you, little one," she said, her heart light. "I'm glad you like it." And so, Moji learned that success does not come from magic or shortcuts. It comes from hard work, kindness, and the courage to make things right when we go astray. She had found her place in the market again, not through the power of a charm, but through the power of her own heart. Years passed, and Moji became known as the wise food seller of Oyo. She still cooked with love, but she never used magic again. Sometimes, when she sat under the mango tree near her house, she would feel a soft breeze, and it would remind her of the lessons she had learned. One evening, as she walked home from the market, Moji noticed the same child who had first appeared to her in the forest. The child stood by the path, a small smile on their face. "You've done well," the child said. Moji smiled in return. "Thank you," she said, feeling a deep sense of peace. The child nodded and disappeared into the forest, leaving Moji with a heart full of gratitude. She had learned that sometimes the greatest magic is not in the charm, but in the simple acts of kindness and love we share with others. And so, Moji lived happily ever after, her food not just a feast for the body, but a nourishment for the soul. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on new uploads.